I'm Joe Caruso. I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm a former member of the 8th Air Force. I started with them in, I guess it was September of 1943, and ended up in May of 1944. I worked at a radio store prior to going into service, and my brother had enlisted in the Air Corps, had taken a test, and they were looking for radio mechanics. And he had passed the test along with my cousin. And they were sent to Randolph Field in Texas, which was at the time, the West Point of the air, if you remember that saying. And my mother would not sign for me. She would not sign papers for me to enlist. So at the time it was 21. You had to be 21 to enlist by yourself. So in September, I became 21, and I took that same test my brother did, and I passed it. And I was sent to Randolph Field, to the same barracks my brother and cousin were in. And we were radio mechanics, which meant we just tested the radios prior to the pilots taking off in the morning, so they knew they had a radio. Well, one day a B-17 came down, and this thing fascinated me. Just looking at it, and the crews all looking like movie stars, I guess you'd call them. And it flattered me. I felt so good about it, I had to get into it. And I asked my my officer, how do I go about getting in that? He says, well, to do it real fast, you become a radio operator. And I said, how do I do that? I don't know anything about radio operating. He says, well, you go to school. So in December, weather was great in Randolph Field, and I get transferred to, of all places, Madison, Wisconsin in the dead of winter. It was quite a change. Spending Christmas in Randolph Field, nice and warm, you know, unusual for me because I'm from New York. But we had a nice warm Christmas and had a nice cold January. And anyway, radio school was going around the clock. They needed radio operators very badly because I understand they were losing them. It was the most vulnerable part of the B-17. So anyway, after about, I guess it was about 3 or 4 months, I forget the actual time, but I was then a radio operator, taking 25 words a minute, which was fantastic. And everybody on a plane had to know how to shoot a gun. So from there we went to Kingman, Arizona, in the dead of summer. And it wasn't too warm. I mean, 109 degrees. I mean, anybody could take that. But anyway, I went through gunnery school, and one of the things, what they did was all the bullets you shot had a different color. And I may have had red or blue, I don't know what color. My first shot at the target, I shot the target down. The target so when the target disappeared, like everybody passes. So the next time around, I actually got enough colored bullets to become a gunner. Well, from there, we had to go to Nebraska. No, it wasn't Nebraska. I forget a lot of places I've been to. But anyway, we picked up our crew. And my pilot, as I said, was 36 years old. He was a former cookie salesman. But he did flying on the side as a hobby. The co-pilot was an electrical engineer. The bombardier was a 19-year-old boy, and unfortunately he was the first one killed on the crew. My wife and I visited his grave in Europe. The tail gunner was from Madison, Wisconsin, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he wanted to get finished just to get back and get married. got married, had a couple of kids, and got divorced. Very happy situation that he got divorced, I mean. Then, let's see, the waist gunner was a fellow, one of the waist gunners was from Washington, D.C., and I've been in touch with him. He's the only fellow that's still living besides myself. I don't know if I'm still living or not, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's 93. He was older than me, another old guy. And the other waist gunner was from Pennsylvania. Now, a crew, as I said, the bombardier was killed. The waist gunner I told you about that's still living got shot down on another crew and became a prisoner of war. The other waist gunner got shot with the waist gunner that took the place of the one that was in prison, and the two of them were shot. Now, one of the things a radio operator had to do was be the first aid man, because I had a nice big room as compared to everybody else. So I had to take care of the two guys that were wounded. And meantime, go back, send a message back to the base that I had two crew members that were hurt, so they'd have an ambulance ready. And I had to man the guns that these two guys had to go like this, well, to see if anybody was coming. So I felt like, you know, like the magician, the juggler that's got 10 balls in the air, you know. A radio operator was a very flexible man. He had to make sure when they said the bombs were away, he had to make sure the bombs were away. He was, the door to the radio room faced the bomb bay. So that's another job I had. We also had a camera that I had to set off. We had, another thing we had to do, we had to throw these silver papers to screw up the German shaft, is what it was called, shaft. We dropped that to block the sight for the gunners on the ground, as the sight of our planes. We had one strange mission, I remember, where we dropped ammunition and supplies to a group called the Marquis. I really don't remember where it was, but we flew very low as a group. We flew very low and dropped these supplies down. Everything was set by our OSS, I guess, where to drop this stuff. My first mission was another oddball. We were supposed to go to this airfield in France where the German pilots were going to graduate from their air school. And it was 12 o'clock exactly, and we had to be there at 12 o'clock, and they were in an open field. And naturally, we dropped anti-personnel bombs. I don't know how many pilots we've killed doing that. But what fascinated me, the fact that we knew to be there at 12 o'clock. And I guess we accomplished what we had to do. It was a very long mission. It was in the southern part of France that they were graduating these people. Can't think of much more.
What was your pilot's name?
Alexander, and that's what we named our plane. Alexander's Ragtime Band, of course.
Did you have any special nose art on the front?
No, we never did. We were undecided what we're going to name ourselves, and consequently, about the 20th mission or so, we decided on it, and it never got painted. I had it painted on my jacket, though. And when I got home, I gave it to my kid brother, and I don't know what happened to it. We were talking about that tonight. It would have been a great family heirloom.
Can you describe the day you took your first mission and what was going through your mind at the time?
Not very much. You know, I don't know about the other guys, but I was stupid. I wasn't scared. It was just like an adventure to me, you know, like, boy, this is something that's, I guess I'm going to talk about the rest of my life, which I didn't. My kids knew very little about what I did. And, but at the time, I thought it was a great adventure.
What made it real for you?
When when the planes came at us in quantity, at the time, the Air Force, the German Air Force was very active, very active. It diminished as the missions went on because we shot down so many of them. We shot down their factories, we shot down the parts places, and that was one of the aims. One of the aims we had was to get the German Air Force up in the air so we could shoot them down.
Yeah, what were your dates of service then, as long as with that bombing group?
As I said, from the actual time was about from September till May. And my brother hadn't finished yet. He was flying with the 94th, and I got transferred to the 94th to wait for my brother to finish his missions. And he finished after D-Day, sometime after D-Day. And we didn't fly home. We took the Queen Mary home. And I came back with Churchill. Churchill was on our ship, on the Queen Mary. And we waited a long time. We didn't know who we were waiting for, but we waited 2 weeks on the ship for him to join us. And what he was doing was going to Halifax, I guess, to meet Roosevelt and decide what they were going to do about Germany and after the war.
Now, would you have been there for the first Berlin raid?
Yes, I was. And contrary to what you see in the movies, we didn't cheer and we say, "Holy smoke, where are we going?" You know. And it was a bad mission. It was a real bad mission, because there was a homeland. There was a lot of flack on that mission, a lot of flack. And unfortunately, both of my brother and I came back without a scratch. My cousin, by the way, became a ground operator, so he wasn't in the 8th Air Force.